The following program is made possible by Planet Earth Diversified, Melee Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design, with additional support from Flavor Magazine, serving the Piedmont's local food and wine culture. So here we are at the VABF Conference 2009, and we're going to document the entire conference for you on Meet the Farmer TV.
This is a very well-attended event, but I truly believe that we're going back to the old ways. I think the things that are going on around us are really making us think about how we used to live. We've gotten so caught up in things. When those things get taken away, we think about how we used to produce things for ourselves. I had an opportunity to meet a gentleman who had been farming for 70 years. And he was not a farmer with a lot of means. He didn't have a lot of money. He relied on a lot of the natural processes occurring on his land to produce. So he didn't purchase pesticides and expensive equipment. When he had a problem with insects, disease, or weeds, he had to find the cause of the problem as opposed to just treating the symptoms. And I remember him saying, "I don't waste anything. I've had to use everything from the land to anything that rots to make food grow." And I said, how did you get so creative? And he said, when you're broke, it's easy to get creative. And I appreciated that. He really appreciated the land and nature. Many progressive farmers are seeking alternatives to their current management practices, particularly with reliance on pesticides and fertilizers, and biological farming is one such alternative. And it's important to understand that this is nothing new. Generations of farmers have successfully followed this farming method, and they know how to work the land and understood how to harness nature. Biological farming makes common sense. If you've seen the latest 2007 Ag Census data, the cost of fertilizers, second to the cost of fuel, rose 86%. That's a lot. So if you reduce or eliminate fertilizers and the use of pesticides, then you promote healthier plants that are more disease and pest resistant. And the biological approach to farming yields soil that is healthy and able to support healthy crops. It's by no means an easy process, but the results are worth it. And amid all of the concerns that we have about the weird weather and the sea level rises and changing precipitation patterns, isn't it time that we really get serious about the way we produce our food?
I really am so glad that while we're here in Richmond, we have Will Allen as our speaker. He's going to talk some about limited resource families that live in the inner city. And we're always focused on limited resource families and middle class families and wealthy families that live out in the country all the time. But a big, huge part of our society that we certainly should be identifying and looking at and understanding their needs are our inner city residents. Certainly we have them in Virginia. We have them in Richmond. We have them down in Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, all in that area. We sure have plenty of them up towards D.C. And what Will Allen and Growing Power has done is they saw that inner city, particularly inner city poverty families, weren't eating well. Lots of good produce is grown up there in Illinois and Wisconsin, and the inner city families weren't getting very much of it. They didn't have access to a lot of that food. And the result of that is things such as diabetes. Diabetes is big in inner city populations. Obesity is big, and I think a lot of that's related to diet. I'm extremely pleased to, I'm not going to introduce him, tell all about him, because his whole presentation is going to be about himself and about Growing Power, but let's welcome Will Allen to come talk to us.
How do we fix that? How do we change the food system? I don't want to, like I said, frame it, because you guys know, you hear about it every day. New York Times, many publications are talking about the situation. Michael Pollan and others have written books about our situation. We know that we have to change it. We know that our current industrial system isn't going to feed us. It's not sustainable. More people are hungry around the world than ever before. This year, there will be more people growing gardens, I predict, in this country than ever before out of need. We've sat here tonight and had a really great meal, and we don't talk about our food enough. These farmers really came through like they always do. And I just think we need to give another applause to all those food producers that produce that great food. But there's a lot of folks in our country and around the world that can't access the kind of meal that we've had tonight. And it's really our responsibility to make sure that everybody in this country and everybody around the world, that should be our goal. And I think it's possible to make sure everybody can have a meal like we had today, but have a meal like this every day. Because that's the way I grew up. When I grew up, we ate like that every day, and that's possible. And we're making that possible inside inner cities, where there's a lot of problems around food access. There's food redlining, where there are no grocery stores because grocery stores don't want to come in to inner city areas. They don't understand the economics, and there are other issues of fear and discrimination around the food system. So we need to come up with ways of getting that healthy food. And one of the ways was, back in the day, was the advent of CSAs. But CSAs really didn't bring food into inner cities. And one of the programs that we developed many years ago is a CSA-type program called Market Basket. And Market Basket was a program that people could pay for their food each week and be able to pay for it with the EBT card, which in the old days was the old food stamp vouchers that we used to get. And now, today, they can pay for that. But there's also a problem that we need to make sure people eat the same food year-round. So how do we make that happen? How do we grow food? We've been talking, as I go around the country, I hear about season extension and so forth. So tonight, one of the things I want to show you all is how we do it, how we've created a food system that's an integrated system that does a lot of things, not only produces food on a large scale, but also educates folks, young people from K-5 and beyond.
We have a design system, okay? Permaculture design system is based on ethics, and it's an ethically based design system. I said in the beginning, we are already designers, and our agriculture is designed with certain goals in mind, okay? It's not designed to be sustainable, but it is designed to maximize output and efficiency and profit. It does those things fairly well, okay? We need to reevaluate. We need to accept the feedback loops that are coming towards us, and we need to learn how to design sustainable systems. And the way we can do that is with an ethical foundation. The first ethic in permaculture is care for the earth, okay? We have the earth as Gaia, as a sustainable system, as a self-managing organism, okay? 5 billion years, it's running fine on its own. It's evolving, becoming ever more complex. What happens when we have massive disturbance is it interrupts that stable system. The burden falls back to the intervener. It's called the burden of the intervener. We have disturbed a stable system. It's up to us, okay, to recreate, to regenerate that stable system.
So the supplier of the nematode, what you need to do is know what your pest is. And then when you order them, is to talk with the rep and tell them what your pest problems is, and they'll be able to tell you if their product is appropriate for you. Because you don't want to spend money and be thinking you're doing biocontrol of your pest when really it's the wrong product. Okay, there's also the issue of nematode host finding behavior, and I already talked about that. This sort of, some nematodes just like to sit and wait, like the ambusher nematodes, Steinernematodes carpocapsae, and then at the other end of that sort of behavioral repertoire is the cruiser nematode, Heterorhabditis, that likes to move through the soil and will hunt out a pest. So if you have a sedentary pest that doesn't move around a lot, like a white grub or a root maggot, you know, you're going to need an active predator to go out and find it. You don't want sort of the couch potato pest and the couch potato nematode, one sitting over here and one sitting here, and neither one of them are moving, so they're not going to meet. Okay, so, but if you have active pests like a cutworm or an armyworm, then it's okay if you're using this ambusher nematode, because the pest is going to be moving around and it will come into contact with the nematode. So if you buy these nematodes, how long can you expect them to last in your fields? Well, it depends. Depends on the temperature, kind of depends on the soil type. But really, most people who looked at them have seen that they really, if you apply them, they can't really detect them. Like if you put them on at the beginning of the season, you're probably not going to find them at the end of the season. They just sort of disappear or die or something. But that said, most people who are doing the research on these, they're just like doing them for a single season. So they apply them every season and they seem to disappear, and people go, oh, they don't persist, so you have to buy them every year. When people do come back to the same site and they look again, it turns out that some of these can sort of persist for a long time. It's just that not many people are looking at, you know, how long they persist. This Steinernematodes glazeri was applied like 50 years ago. It was the first nematode that was reared in artificial media and then applied. It was applied to turf to control Japanese beetles in New Jersey. And when some researchers came back to some of those sites 50 years later, they could still detect these nematodes, so that they were still persisting and reproducing and going on. They had established there.
Now, where do people sell? Almost overwhelmingly, we had 74% of producers who sold from on-farm, so they might have a freezer themselves. There's some producers who actually have their own retail store, self-service. 33% sell at farmers markets. Okay, and we did ask separately, you know, your primal cuts, your subprimals, do you have different outlets for those? And people had basically the same market outlets regardless of the type of cuts, okay? But you did have on-farm sales dominating, farmers markets, natural specialty food stores, restaurants, buyers clubs, and wholesale were all pretty common. And one of the interesting things I found through talking to different pasture-finished beef producers, direct marketers of beef, is that often they go to the farmer's market, and through their exposure at the farmer's market, they generate a loyal clientele. And there is a cost to going to the farmer's market, of course, because you've got to load up and you've got to have some way to keep the product cool, and you've got to sit at the farmer's market all day. But what they find is that as they generate that clientele, then they actually sometimes then will be able to transition those customers to buying directly from their farms. And there is a very significant demand for meat at farmers markets. It's a real growth area. A lot of farmers markets are looking for more meat producers. And so I think that's really a good way for people to get into the market and then look at establishing loyal clientele as they go.
What is the biodynamic farm? It's an individualized organism in interaction with the ecological, social, economic, and spiritual whole of which it is a part. Okay? So the first thing as a biodynamic farmer that you learn is that your farm is unlike any other farm. It is truly individualized. That should appeal to all Americans, because we're so darn individualized. We're so individualized we can't see past our own shadow. Right? We forget about the whole so often because we insist on being individuals first. Well, all right, you can be a biodynamic farmer and you be individualized, which means that you really can't say what biodynamic farms are taken all together, because every farm is an individual. So every farm is different. You can come to me and learn about biodynamic farming, but that doesn't mean your farm has to be like mine. You have to find out what your farm is going to be like, because you're an individual and your farm is going to be an individualized organism. But we take that term organism seriously, meaning we actually think of the farm as a living being. They aren't just the cows who are living beings, but the soil is a living being, the whole farm is a living being, and it has its own life. And once you internalize that idea, everything changes on the farm. Secondly, why biodynamics? Okay? This is a term that was coined by Rudolf Steiner, who lived between 1861 and 1925. And it means life force. It can also be translated as spirit if you want to. But it comes from the Greek bios, which means life, and dynamis, which means force or power. Okay? To me, that is the major distinction between a natural scientific point of view or perspective on life and a biodynamic perspective. And that is, a biologist can tell you what the forms of life are. They can tell you what the functions are. They can tell you about evolutionary patterns. But they can't tell you what the bios is, what life is. No biologist can tell you what actually life is. That's the mystery. Now, scientists will say, well, okay, that's all we can know because that's all we can can measure materially. And that's where we're going to stop. But I don't see why we have to stop there as human beings, because we're always faced with the ultimate mystery. What is life? What is time? What was there before there was time? You ever think about that? What was there before there was life? Can you even imagine that? So the scientists will say, well, okay, we can't answer that question, so why ask the question? The reason we ask the question is because it changes everything once you do. It changes who you are, and it changes how you look at your work. It changes how you look at the soils. It changes how you look at the animals. It changes how you look at community.
You can make this work on your own farm. If we look at the talk that was before this one, this was a biodynamic talk, and what we're doing here is applied biodynamics, okay? So it doesn't even matter where you are. You could have a concrete parking lot out here, and in a few years we could make that parking lot a biodynamic. You know what I mean? It takes a little bit of time. Well, guess what? If I bring Trichopoda in, then my squash bug stock is going to go down, which is what I want it to do, right? And I want to preserve this insect, okay? So that is, you know, I mean, you have biological wealth. If you have the biodiversity, Mother Nature is inherently in balance, or you can help her get into balance, right? But you have to have the right bugs there in the first place. And so sometimes you have to bring them in, or other times, you know, you'll have them there naturally, okay? Give me a question. Harlequin bug. Harlequin bug is the bubble wrap of insects, right? You just got to squeeze them, all right? Now, here's what to do with harlequin bug. And I've grown a lot of broccoli, so I've squeezed tons of harlequin bug. This is yeah? Huh? Well, you could let it go to seed, you know, or you could actually seed it out. You know, what we would do is we would take the seed of Queen Anne's lace and actually put it in one of our little speedling flats, the 200 cells, and make a bunch. You know, you get your little rosette, go out. Here's the other way to do it. You go out to a field somewhere around you that has a lot of Queen Anne's lace, and you wait until it's in seed. You get a Ziploc bag. You go out and you clip the heads, and then you shake it and get all the seeds in there. This is the way I did my entire side of my yard. It was really great. I went to a Christmas tree grower friend of mine that had a really biodiverse Christmas tree farm. He let me clip, you know, about 50 Queen Anne's lace heads as the seeds were mature. You know, they were really dry. And then I just took them and I sprinkled them out. And I have established, you know, it's been 10 years since I did that. And so I just make sure when I'm mowing my yard or weed eating or whatever, because that's on the side of my garden, but my yard and my garden kind of come together. And so I just make sure to preserve that, okay? Okay, harlequin bug. First thing is ecological kung fu. You notice what time of year this is again, and you notice where this picture is? This is in my farmscaping. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is the The most favorite food of any plant-feeding bug are seed pods, green seed pods. So this is radish. Those things are waiting for the radishes to make seed pods. Another really good plant that harlequin bugs like is cleome or spiderwort because of the seed pods. So what we do, if this was my field and I'm protecting it from harlequin bugs, I've got my border around my field, and I also use leaf musters. We had a SARE grant. I had a SARE grant with Charles Church up in Valley Crucis, where we successfully controlled harlequin bugs. So the first thing is we have these trap crops, okay, and we can either spray that mating pair with soap. I carry a little squirt bottle that's just got a little bit of Dawn dishwashing liquid in it, 10% solution, or you can use insecticidal soap if you're certified organic. It causes the same thing. If I hit that thing with that mating pair with soap, they're dead because it burns their wax layer off. Okay. So you're going to trap them. You're going to lure them to seed pods. The other thing you have to have insect-wise is there are 3 or 4 species of parasitic wasp that attack harlequin bug eggs. Excuse me, harlequin bug.
A farmer has a situation where, for example, one farmer was saying, someone in my family died of cancer, and it really made us all really want to move from conventional agriculture to naturalistic agriculture and get rid of chemicals. That was a need. It motivated them to learn much more fully about how to do that type of agriculture. Other people were motivated by the things you see on the right-hand side there. Cutting edge. They really want to be cutting edge producers. They really want to save time, save money, and socialization. You don't just go to learning events to learn. You want to find out about the labor issues, the fertilizer issues, the latest products, whatever. And that process in between to get there, where they get their most information from is other people with similar experience.
We go here to telephone. I get lots of phone calls every day. I hate to engage people in the phone on lots of things other than it's just quick informational transfer, but if a common call to me is, I just bought 100 acres in Madison County and I want to be a farmer. Can you tell me how to do it? And I say, well, let's set up an appointment. There's no way I can do this on telephone. So this is an introductory mode here. We have TV with videos, VCRs, now we have our DVDs. We have all of our online. Jonah just did an online presentation on electronic debit cards for farmers markets that I sat in on. And so that's a new training mode. Virginia State had one yesterday on some commercial vegetable production that I invited people to my office to participate in because the dial-up just doesn't work too good with that type of transfer. So if we use this, we need to make sure our audience can use the technology. Some of us, like in Madison, who have very little access to Virginia broadband, is dial-up. That's all they, have access to. We have radio. I used to do a radio show, and it was unbelievable the number of comments that I got from farmers about radio shows. Farmers do listen to the radio, and they listen to the radio at obscene times too, like 5 a.m. When they told me my spot was at 5 a.m., I'm like, well, good. No one will hear that. I can do whatever I can do. So, but no, they were up. They got up listening to me at the alarm clock. So that made me real nervous because they were waking up to me. I was the rooster.
The main program requirement that you would invest time in is arranging for your on-farm inspection. It's up to the members to identify someone in their area who uses natural practices, ideally another certified naturally grown farmer. But we can be pretty spread out in some parts of the country. Some people may go home from this conference having learned about the program and then not have anyone near them who's already participating. In that case, it's fine to rely on another farmer who uses natural practices or an extension agent or a certified organic farm. There's a lot of collaboration between organic and certified naturally grown farms, and we encourage that. That's exactly what we want to see happen. Why do it? Well, the main reason I would say is to have a way to communicate to your customers your growing practices. It just sort of validates what you say at the market when you're talking to them. And a lot of people say they want it to celebrate their growing practices. They just want to highlight it. want to share in a community of like-minded people. I get that a lot on the applications. You do get some publicity on the website. For what it's worth, everyone who participates in the program is in good standing is listed. Once you're certified, you can use the Certified Naturally Grown name and logo to market your materials.
Dealing with local people, local restaurants, local food stores is something that just really hit me right. Ultimately, what all of this is about is producing a good, wholesome product that has great taste, is local, is fresh, and is basically what people are looking for, good quality, nutrient-dense foods. And after they buy it the first time, then they come back a second time. Then you've got them, you know, as a regular customer, assuming that they like it. Not everybody really likes slightly tart blackberries, for example, but many people do. Practically everybody loves blueberries, raspberries, the things that I grow. So we get a lot of repeat business, and so that's the way it works at a farmer's market in my experience. When it comes to food stores, again, in Loudoun County, we do have a number of small food stores that are health food stores or just local stores in some of the small towns. And as in many small communities, you get to know the people because the owners of the stores, because you've been there and you've bought from them perhaps in the past. And so you tell them, look, I'm raising these berries now. Would you like to try them? You give them a few boxes to try, or just one box, and they like the taste of them because that's what they're going for. First and foremost is taste, and then if you can say that it follows the O word, great. You know, then they'll say, okay, this is certified naturally grown. That means it's good. That means it doesn't have any chemicals on it. That means that, you know, it's been produced by a local producer. The restaurant business, if you sell to a chef, you've got to have a good product, period. That's all. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's got to be good. It has to be, ideally, it has to be priced right for that chef. But chefs can have, especially if it's an executive chef, he can have a fair amount of leeway. If they can say that this has been produced by Howell, who just lives 3 miles from here, wonderful. People love that. They really like the idea of being able to have some trust in the restaurant and the producer and so forth. Certified naturally grown is an inspection system or an organic system for farmers without lawyers. You know, because all the big companies, they'll have lawyers, you know, and those of us who don't have lawyers, this works. You know, it's certified naturally grown is community. It's local is a given. You know, knowing who the customer is, knowing who the grower is a given. It's about familiarity and trust. It's not about anonymity.
Well, now you've seen the annual VABF conference here in Richmond, Virginia, and we thank you for joining Meet the Farmer TV. For additional information and extended versions of this program, visit our website, www.meetthefarmer.com. The preceding program was made possible by Planet Earth Diversified, Melee Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design, with additional support from Flavor Magazine, serving the Piedmont's local food and wine culture.